everybody. Welcome to Build. I am your host, Ricky Camilleri. Man, oh man, am I excited. Our next guests are the folks behind the most punk rock, crazy, hilarious, critically minded, revolutionary, badass film of the year. To give you any details at all is to ruin the fun behind Sorry to Bother You. So let's just look at the trailer.
That is intriguing.
I'm just out here surviving, and what I'm doing right now won't even matter.
Oh, baby, it will always matter.
I thought you said you fixed that.
Get a room! I got a room, motherfucker!
Hey, Cash, how much longer I gotta wait for my money?
God made this land for all of us. Greedy people like you want to hog it to yourself and your family and...
Me and my family?
Yeah.
Cassius, I'm your fucking uncle.
I just really need a job.
This is telemarketing. Stick to the script.
Hello?
This is Cassius Green. Sorry to bother you. I just wanted to...
You want to make some money here? Use your white voice.
My white voice.
Like this young blood.
Hey, Mr. Kramer. This is Langston from Regal View.
Was that Visa or MasterCard?
We go leveling up!
You're going upstairs, my compadre.
Okay, bravo.
You don't have to sell out.
I'm not selling out.
Here's the starting salary. Well, man, I'm gonna have to get me some new suits.
We will have a transformative experience.
Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you!
I'm doing something I'm really good at.
Holla, holla, holla!
Cassius, the old you was way more interesting.
You are rolling with the big dogs now.
Greetings, Cassius Green. I hope you did not masturbate today. We need you sharp and ready to go.
Everybody, please welcome from Sorry to Bother You, Lakeith Stanfield, Tessa Thompson, Jermaine Fowler, Terry Crews, Steven Yeun, and the brilliant writer-director behind the film, Boots Riley. Whoa!
What's happening?
Guys, thanks so much for being here. Congratulations. I love this movie. I love it so much. I have to say that about a lot of stuff, but I really fucking love this movie. This time it's true. I felt like a kid watching this movie. I felt like I was watching something that was punk rock that I hadn't seen before. I wanted to stand up and cheer. I wanted to go out and protest. I wanted to yell. I wanted to go read Marx again. It made me feel like a college kid. I loved it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But let's go back. In 2012, the Coup released Sorry to Bother You, which has references to Cassius Green on it. It's incredibly funky. I think it's my favorite Coup album. How much of this is based off of that? Had you started this script yet, or were the characters just kind of floating around in your head?
So yeah, no, that album was an attempt to get my script noticed. So
You already had the script.
I already had the script, and I had planned to make that album and planned for it to be the soundtrack to the movie, not knowing it was going to take me another 6 years to get a movie out. So I made another soundtrack that is actually the soundtrack to the album. So it's going to be kind of confusing, but you'll have two albums that have something to do with the movie.
How long did it take you to write this script?
I think getting to the end the first time took like 6 or 7 months while I was doing other stuff, but we kept writing it, like I kept getting notes, like taking in people's opinion and not believing it, and then being like, oh, okay, they're right. And then, even on set, we were writing stuff, and there was a good amount of improvisation in the movie that was just kind of like, they say something, I'd be like, that sounds stupid. Okay, let's figure something else out,
Now, I don't want to, I really don't want to spoil anything for this movie because so much of the fun of it is watching how it unfolds. But one of the things that I was so surprised by that I didn't know about going into it is that it's a film about labor and it's about capitalism and it's a critique of how labor is used. That's what life is about. Now, someone could say, oh, this movie is so prescient and it's about right now, but you actually started writing it many years ago, which means that labor in this country has kind of been the same for some time.
I actually, this could have come out when I was born, which is like 1899, and it would still be...
I got that from the... Yeah, I can see 1899.
And unfortunately, it's going to be relevant for a while now. When I wrote it, Obama was in office, obviously, and Omari Hardwick's character had a line in it that I had to take out because the world made many of the lines in the movie too on the nose. So his line was, there's a company called Worry Free in the movie, and his line is, "Worry Free is making America great again." And that was in the 2014 version that came out on McSweeney's.
Which is a reference also to Reagan, right? Wasn't that also Reagan's campaign slogan?
I think everybody...
Any sort of racist white guy running is like throwing that out since like 1950, right? Since Jim Crow, they're kind of like, oh, make it great again, and throwing that out. So when you go into a Trump world, do you feel like outside of that line you had to pull some stuff back because we're kind of living in our own crazy satire?
No, I didn't.
It's not funny.
I just went for it. I mean, there's stuff like homeless camps in the movie that when I wrote it, people were like, oh, that's going to be a production cost. We got to do... But by the time we started filming, they were actually there, so we just had to drive by them.
Wow. In Oakland, right?
In Oakland, yeah. All the stuff you see there, we didn't spend any money making it, unfortunately. And, so it's just there because... And these aren't like me being prophetic. It's me applying a class analysis to the stuff going on around us instead of just, what a lot of the news media does. Is like, we don't know why things are happening. There's this evil guy, but then there's this evil guy that's not as evil. So get the other evil guy that's not as evil because that's your only choice. And then everybody's like, fuck, what do we do? Can I cuss on
Yeah, you can curse,
okay.
It's too late, boo.
Motherfucker. And so this has an analysis of what the actual contradictions are, and that's gonna lead you to stuff that's really gonna happen. Like, there's a company in this movie, and I don't even know if it's illegal. I don't know if what they do is really illegal. So, and probably somebody's gonna test it out.
They're gonna see Sorry to Bother You and be like, not bad, all right, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
I'm curious, was it difficult for you to take that class analysis and apply it into a comedy, or do you feel like that's something you've been sort of doing your whole career with?
Yeah, I don't take it. It's just how I see the world. Like, I don't have to think oh, how do I apply this? It's just how I see the world. And I kind of got raised by organizers who are the old school organizers. There's kind of a new idea of what activism is, which is really event-based. Like, let's get people out on the street, let's do this. And you don't really make a connection with a community of people, right? But the old school organizer was the people that were popular on the job or in their neighborhood or whatever. They had to be the loud, boisterous person that was funny and pointing out things, and people needed to like them. It wasn't like, I'm the outcast and I'm the rebel. That's more like some rebel without a cause, punk sort of stuff, which is not the same thing. That's a whole different aesthetic and different idea than what organizers, community organizers were. So those folks that I came up around were always cracking jokes, and that's kind of how, because when you analyze something, there's a contradiction there that you're showing. Contradiction is closely associated with irony, and irony and humor, I don't know, they might be the exact same thing.
It's the difference between power to the people and power to the individual, which is power to the individual's a far more sort of a subset of the capitalist idea of how we can live right now, and it takes the power away from the community.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's right. That's what I got from the movie a little bit.
Okay.
I was just trying to analyze what you told me. I'm going to move on to everybody else. Sorry, but Boots is pretty great, and he's been around for a little while.
But basically, I didn't try to make it. I just had fun and let my ideas be in there, and so it just ended up being funny and having this politic.
So the film is wild and it's surreal and it's crazy, but I feel like your two characters in a lot of way are the gateway to this, and you have to remain as grounded as possible throughout all of this. Was that something that you talked about beforehand going into the movie, how your performances could, remain grounded while all this wild, surreal stuff was happening around them?
There's nothing that I discussed at length in particular with Boots, but I remember the day we wrapped, and he pulled me aside and said, well, just thank you for having a performance that would be real enough for us to connect to this character in this fantastical world. You were able to ground the character in the story. And that meant a lot to me because I didn't realize that he was using me in my slave labor to get across his political ideas.
You didn't? That was really apparent to me.
Yeah.
That he was using you.
Right.
I mean, there were a lot of long days, and they all wanted to go out and party, and we had to, like, wrangle them up. We had to send
Just
people
for
out
research. We were just trying to do research into Oakland. That's it. It was really for your movie, Booth.
Yeah.
For sure.
Which his production company is called Worry Free, which is the same title as his company. So I kind of feel like the movie was a metaphor for how he treated us.
Yeah.
Boots works on layers.
Minus the special sauce.
It's I'm being ironic when I'm making a movie about my company.
So what drew you to working with Boots and drew you to this script?
When I read the script, it was unlike anything I'd ever read before, and I really wanted to work with Lakeith as well. We worked on Selma together, but we didn't really have any scenes together. And I just, ever since seeing him in Short Term 12, I thought he was such a special talent. And then, I've always wanted to make a film that hung out in the space of magical realism. So many of the films that I love sort of use that filmically. And for whatever reason, there are just never any black or brown people in those narratives. So I just always assumed that I would never get to make a film like that. And then this came along, and it sort of was what I kind of always wanted to do.
Steven, you're kind of the big community organizer in the film, and at one point it feels like you could potentially be not a villain per se, but kind of the antagonist in the personal life of our main character. But I love that the film doesn't dive too deeply into that. What did you think of playing a community organizer? Did you do any research? Because your character is really based in a kind of the reality of community organizers and union organizers.
Boots gave me some really great resources. He had me read some Saul Alinsky stuff, and then he had me talk to actually a undercover community organizer, which was really cool. And then
assault, someone that goes into workplaces with the intention of organizing a union. The word undercover, like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I already blew it. Shit. But it was also like, to bring up that villain point, I feel like, not to justify Squeeze, but more to say I think his viewpoint of the world, especially where he's from, is a little bit more accepting of the chaos and just kind of going with the natural flow of process in lieu of progress, or in consideration of progress. So, yeah, I mean, people are human. They want the things that they want, and then sometimes fate brings that, or they just let the moment take them. And so Squeeze is quiet. He's low-key.
Did you get that from, there's a guy that you talked to, Kevin. Did you get that from him, or?
I think Kevin and I, when we were talking, he brought up a lot of just like politics within. Because he would tell me stories about how he almost got outed, or how he had to avert, being beat up because they were knowledgeable that he was about to turn them. And so he approaches it like a politician, which is no one to hold him, no one to fold him. And that was a really big mantra for me in my approach to Squeeze.
So a character that kind of plays it close to the chest for the most part?
I would say so, but I think the part of Squeeze that, I couldn't really take away was he still has a heart for it, and so, he plays a little reckless sometimes.
Jermaine,
a little bit of a mactivist.
Activist.
Is that the...
Yeah, he's hot.
Oh, no.
He comes in, he's like, I'll organize you.
Activist. I got you. He's a Mac and an activist. Sorry.
Sip that water, Steve.
Mac computer at first, and then got lost, and then was like, oh, I get it. I'm dumb and slow. I got it. Jermaine, talk about the character that you play in the film.
Oh, man. I play Cassius, Lakeith's character's best friend. I gave him the job at the particular company, which he tries to get a higher position at. The thing is, I I laugh all the time about being in this film because I love all these people and I'm fans of everybody work, and it was just great to be a part of it. And I come from the stand-up world, and I get on set, and Boots is I'm used to doing multicam TV stuff, performing from audiences and telling jokes and ba-ba-da-da-da and all that stuff. And not like that. That's not how you do jokes. That's more of a noise. But
summarized beautifully.
Ba-da-ba-da-boo. Boots walks up to me. I'm nervous. Yeah, fuck. I can say fuck now. Thanks to Boots, he opened that door. Yeah, motherfucker. I'm nervous, man. Boots walks up to me, man. He's like, I'm in his hometown. I'm in his turf. So he walks up to me, and he's like, picking his hair. And he's like, hey, look, man. And I'm like, what's up, Boots? He goes, look, you just having a conversation, all right? Having a conversation. When you talk, man, make sure you're keeping it real. And I'm like, is that a threat? Because why you so intimidated? And it was the best note I've ever gotten. It was my first film I've ever done, so I was happy that note also, it just stuck with me for the rest of the filming, and working alongside Tessa, Steven, and Lakeith.
No, I said you already are funny. I'm just looking at you and you funny.
I'm so afraid right now.
You funny.
It's low-key rude.
Yeah. I was like,
you don't have to try. Just.
You see when this worry-free shit kicking in? He was threatening us and
I was like, yo, man. But it'd be it was just really cool to work with all these folks. There'd be scenes with Tessa and Steven and Lakeith that I just, I learned how to sort of navigate most scenes, looking at how they do things, right? There were some scenes, really intense scenes that I did with Lakeith. It was one scene we're arguing together, and Lakeith brings this intensity to the camera, man, and sometimes I thought he was really going to punch me in the face, and I'm like,
he was.
He probably was.
It wasn't off the table.
I think Boots gave him that note. Look, shit go wrong. Punch that nigga in the nose.
I was ready for something to happen. I didn't know who was going to throw the first punch, but yeah.
Jermaine's going to hit you. But that was Boots would give these amazing, these notes and the way there was I think I heard that you gave Army a note during a scene with Lakeith that, hey, do that line as if Lakeith was holding a knife or that.
No, I said for him to analyze different parts of Lakeith's body to see if he could kill him with it.
But that's kind of what I said.
See how evil he is,
kind
man?
Of exactly what I said. He only used the... Man, whatever, Boots. I don't give a shit. Look, the movie was amazing to shoot, and it was just... you can take so many things away from it, and I'm just happy that I got to be a part of a film that is it's groundbreaking, man. I hope you guys see it and love the shit as much as I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that this is a movie that in years people are going to be still showing each other? 18-year-old kids are going to be like, have you seen this movie? It's so wild. You have to check it out. It's going to live on for some time. Terry, you have such a diverse, crazy career. I think sitcom hosting, and then your activism as well. What drew you to Sorry to Bother You when you saw the script? How did this happen? Did you meet Boots and we're like, all right, let's do this?
Wow. Actually, producer Nina came to me. They produced Fruitvale Station, and she was one of Forrest Whitaker's producers, part of his team, and presented me with the script. And I checked it all out, and they said, we're about to do this movie in Oakland and the whole thing. And I'm like, that immediately interested me because I'm from Flint, Michigan, and I look at Oakland as almost like a sister city. You know what I mean? It's been through a lot of the same things Flint, Michigan's been through. But when I opened this script and I started reading, I was like, oh my God, this is the movie we didn't know we needed. I was like, oh my God, because, it's kind of wild. You kind of get hypnotized. People of color have been, in a lot of ways, hypnotized into believing that our views aren't viable. You know what I mean? It's like if you don't reach this kind of standard of a movie, it's got to be by page 30, it's got to be this and this and this. I've even had scripts that, you know, you go to white script readers and they go, nope, this will never work. Yep. And that's what this movie would have been. When you go to those same script readers, they would have threw it out. And I was like, oh my God, this is speaking for me. It is speaking for us. It is speaking for those who have not had a voice. And I was like, I would have paid him to be in it. That's just the truth. And I said, whatever you need from me, I'm there. I was like, my God. And then when I looked at what the character was, Sergio, and it reminded me of so many people I grew up with in Flint, Michigan, who had given they'd given up all of their dreams, everything they wanted in life for security of the factory. And it turned on them. Like they told you, you're gonna have health care for life, you're gonna have this for life. Everyone was told that. I mean, so many people I grew up with was told the same thing. This is for life, y'all. And it went 15 years, and it was over. And everybody was like, what do I do now? Man, I'm telling you, it resonated with me so much. And when I look at these, when I was doing the movie, it had one theme. When I saw the movie, there's a whole nother theme. And it's like, when we go to festival to festival, the themes keep changing. Yeah. And as time goes on, and I'm
keep
just
doing
like,
more
it's
edits.
Incredible. It's layers. You know? Layers on layers. And I'm telling you, it's so refreshing. The only thing I can reminds me of is when I first saw Do the Right Thing.
You know, Boots, you said that you're not even sure what Worry Free does in the movie is illegal, and we exist in this time right now where 10 years ago there were satires made about this time, and it has happened. Do you see a fair amount of what happens in Sorry to Bother You as something that in 5-10 years' time will actually maybe be happening, as fantastical and crazy as they seem in the moment?
Yeah, I mean...
Without giving anything away.
Yeah, I think that if we let it, it will happen. If we don't have a movement that can grab the reins of power ourselves, then anything is possible, you know. And whatever we let them do, and who's them? The ruling class, the folks that are in power, that have the wealth that influence the politicians. You know, if we just, you know, hope that we get the right person that doesn't get bought out, if that's our only hope, then we don't have that much hope. But what this movie tries to do is instill an optimism that comes from having an analysis that says that there is a way for us to take power where we are and to control the way the world works from there.
And it's also very fun.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's funny too. It's funny too.
It's also, yeah.
Did I go too serious on this interview?
That's Boots. It's Boots' fault.
It's very funny, guys.
It's
a
both.
very funny.
Get a film that can do both.
Yeah, because I think because I think people can grasp already from the trailer that it's going to be a good time. But this is good also to talk about the layers, and we don't really talk about that enough. But I think the way that you get that message to people is to kind of let them have fun with it. And this is not going to be something that's going to beat you over the head. Well, it will, but in a fun way. There's actually we'll get to that when you see the movie. How much
regular guy interview. Lakeith, do you have a white guy voice? Can you show us your white guy voice
Praise
from
the Lord,
the movie?
Jesus Christ! I just want to say, all my lovely children here,
That's good.
that this movie, it is the movie of the century, and I just need you to stand up and praise. All right, let me see.
That was good. That was good.
So, you're doing your Chiwetel.
That's your white boy?
At first, I was like, oh, I get, okay.
Like TDJ.
But here's the thing: is that for me, art is about style. Art is about aesthetic, and obviously, and what you're using that style and aesthetic to say. So obviously, because a lot of people, maybe when they make movies, I don't want to, denigrate other movies, but a lot of them are just saying what we already hear from every place else. And so then you can just focus on the comedy. Oh, you've got great timing or whatever. but because we might have great timing and something else, that's what gets talked about. So I think what I'm picking up maybe is there's a worry that because we're talking about these deep ideas in there, not so deep, but unusual to talk about in film, ideas, that it may seem like this is some sort of heavy-handed movie. But no, I'm not saying to you, but I'm saying to people that haven't seen it. But the truth is I know the main thing is people gotta feel good when they see the movie. Not feel good like in some like getting numb off of cocaine sort of way, but like feel like they gotta be entertained. Cause me, I don't like quote unquote political art. I like good art. And hopefully it, you know, on top of being good, it's also doing something else. Yeah, it's also heroin. And
well, when I say that people, kids like 18-year-old kids, 17-year-old kids in 10, 15 years will go back and watch this movie, I really think it's because of how fun it is and how crazy it is. And then they'll pick up on a lot of the messages and everything it's saying. But it's going to because it does things that are wild and crazy and are totally unexpected, not simply because of the political message behind it. Though that is great too.
Like me, I've been doing what some people call political music for like 20-something years. I don't agree with that term because I think it's all political. It's all telling you something, and usually it's just telling you what the status quo is already telling you through other means. But I might agree with somebody, and a lot of that stuff that I agree with, I'm not going to listen to. Because for me, as an artist, I have an ego, and it's attached to the idea of mastering your craft and being good. So I've dealt with for years like people like, oh, that's a political thing, you know, like before they even listen to it, right? So that's what I'm being self-conscious about. And I kind of picked up on that comment from Lakeith Stanfield.
From the white guy pastor that Lakeith just did.
the
reverend.
I was actually trying to secretly drive the point home that the white voice isn't a sound, it's a feeling. And before there were black pastors in America, there were white ones. And in the South, they sounded like how black people in the South sound now. So the white
Did
voice...
they do the footwork, though? That was mostly what I was distracted by.
Truly free. That was free footwork.
Well, that might just be me.
Let's get some questions from the audience. Who has a question? Right here.
Oh, you got the mic. Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, what's good, y'all? I'm Tywell. So I was wondering, pretty much I'm at this point in my life, right?
What up?
So I've been, I was like very heavily involved with like theater and video production all up until college, right? And then like the fear, I guess, and like insecurities and like pressure from the world kind of led me to study finance. And I was a financial analyst for 2 years, and then I just kind of emerged from that abyss. I was way too depressed for my age. And now I'm pursuing acting again, right? So I'm just wondering, what motivated you all to do it? It's not an easy field, and is there anything else you could see yourself doing ever?
At the risk of sounding like too saccharine or trite, the reason that I think I do what I do is because I literally can't imagine anything else. And when I look back at sort of everything I did previous, sort of as a hobbyist, it was all related to storytelling in this way, and was performative. And I kind of think that's the way it ought to be if you want to do it. I almost feel like if you can imagine doing anything else and being happy, then you should do that. And I know that sounds like dramatic, but it's the dramatic arts.
That was beautiful.
Good punch.
And I kind of just think, I don't know, it's hard, you know? And yeah, and I think I think you have to like really just love it in you, not you in it, because you're gonna go through varying degrees of like comfortability with being in it. But if you just like that, what exists inside you, and it feels like it's gonna hold up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like that applies
I
too
could
to
see you
like the other
telling
mediums.
fortunes or something like that.
Telling fortune? Yeah, but that would be performative.
Okay.
Like any other thing I was interested in, like for a moment I was like, oh, I'll be a lawyer, or like I like cultural anthropology. But the way that I would imagine it was like me at a place, like talking to people. It was like I was imagining a film of me doing it, as opposed to the actuality of being like in a room looking at stool samples. Like. Legit, you know what I mean? Like so everything felt like I was spinning stories around all the other things I could do, and they all involved what I'm doing now, Like they all had to do with persuasion. They all had to do with changing people's perception, with influencing in some way, and dealing with people's feelings and trying to manipulate them. Frankly, that sounds. I'm gonna stop. What'd you say?
Well, I mean, what you're getting at is just kind of like, you're communicating through the craft in which you're most effective for you, right? And I think that's, if you're in video production, like, look at Boots. Boots communicated through multiple mediums. But honestly, the key for me with Sorry to Bother You, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but the thing is, like, I've said this before, but Boots made a Boots Riley film on his first go. And that's probably, like, a really good indicator of what the world needs now and is always needed, but it's also like that's a testament to how authentic he can be, and we can always be more authentic. We're growing and learning, but he constantly like readdresses, and he's able to take Sorry to Bother You, which you wrote 7 years ago, and then make it poignant for now, which it always has been, but you're smart enough to self-assess as you go, and whatever medium that is for you, whether it's law or checking out poo-poo, that's cool. Like, you can find that there.
I also think
now I just do that as a hobbyist.
One of the really positive aspects of Sorry to Bother You, and there's a number of them, and it kind of addresses one thing that you were saying, is that Tessa's character and some of what the movie's about is being able to exist as an artist in this world and within this system, and how difficult that is. And I think that's something that, while it's not the sort of first layer of the film or the A story of the film, it is something that is very inspirational in how you address it, and is probably one of the more realistic through lines of the movie as well.
I mean, how I wrote now all these characters kind of became their own once I started collaborating with the actors, but the way that I infused humanity into the characters on the page was that all the characters were an aspect of me that have to do with the conflict that I have going on in my head at all times, which is, one, the artist who wonders if any art that I'm making really is doing anything, and which is also arguing with the organizer in my head, who is saying, no, what the fuck are you doing? And who also
they're like, let's kiss. Those two parts of you. Spoiler, sorry.
And then the jokester who's trying to deflect sometimes, and the guy who wants to engage in the world, and then the guy who, anyway. But
he wants to know what guy he is.
no, I said the guy that wants to engage in the world and wants to feel like they mean something. In other ways, though, all the characters are doing that. But the artist one is definitely a piece that I think has some complexity in it for Detroit, because there are all these questions. I mean, I think we're always told, at the very least, like, we go on TV and we be like, let your voice be heard and that's enough, and it's not, it's not enough to just put out a tweet. It's not enough to, even just stand on a corner and say something. There are things that we have to do in order to organize ourselves to be able to make change. Art has a place in it. Art has a place in that conversation. But if artists subtract themselves from those actual movements, then we start answering the wrong questions, because we don't know what we're not in those grassroots movements to know what the questions are. There's this book and I'm not going to quote the author right, but it's called 9.5 Theses on Art and Class. It came out a few years ago. An art critic did it. And in it, he uses examples to show that, all artists often have great motivations. Like, I want to say something, and but being disconnected changes that. So, for instance, there was the big art installation in New York around the time while there was a big anti-war movement against the invasion of Iraq, the bombing of Iraq. And, the whole thing was like bodies laid around and blood and guts and all that kind of stuff, because the artist believed that the way to get people against the war was to let them know that there's carnage, because they had that question that they came up with on their own. But anti-war movement people were like, no, that's not the problem. Everybody knows the war is fucked up. They just don't think they can do anything about it. So there's a different question that needs to be answered by the artist, and artists just thinking that they can have the answer and be subtracted from actual movements makes you say the wrong thing, makes you you're in that loop, but you're detracting from the actual movement, even though you're trying to be part of it. So art has a place, but it has to be connected to actual movements.
That's a great point.
Next question.
Hi, guys. One of the things I'm most excited about with this movie is just how original of a concept it is, how original of an idea it is, how well it was shot. And you don't really see stuff like this getting made anymore. I mean, it's mostly tent poles these days. So my question as an aspiring artist is, what can you do now in an industry that is so saturated with people who are also trying to get their voices out there? What can you do as an artist, whether it's stand-up, acting, writing, directing, whatever? What can you do to be seen as an artist now?
Next question.
What can you do to be seen as an artist? Is that, wait, I'm sorry, I'm missing the...
Like, what can you do to be seen by other people? What can you do to get your art seen by other people?
Instagram? No, I'm just
You got some jokes right now? You're on camera.
Yeah.
I wish I did.
I think what you're hinting around is maybe how do you create something in a sea of art that can withstand the test of time, maybe, because there's so much stuff coming out, but certain things, they come and then like 2 hours later we don't give a fuck because there's something else we could be paying attention to. I think part of that is just like staying true to what's going on internally within you and being honest and real about it and laying that out. And some of that stuff tends to stick around a little bit longer because it's something that people identify with, rather than like concepts and things that, instead of trying to approach art in a way where it's like I'm trying to say something, just throw that shit up and just do it in an authentic way. And I think we'll start to see we're weeding around all of the really flashy, cool shit to get down to something that means something, especially when times are hard.
Oftentimes the things. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just want to add to that a little bit, because I think in this culture of social media, if you don't get 3 million likes, you feel like it's not worth putting out. But the problem is, and that's the thing, I mean, you got to start with 100 likes. And so you put it out, and all of a sudden it'll grow. But what's happened now is, if it's not immediate, and if your voice is not heard all over the world in 1 minute, you feel like all of a sudden, forget it, nobody wants to hear it. And that's just not true. And it's not real. And when you're comparing yourself, joy is what they say, a comparison is the thief of joy, is what I always heard. And it's when you start comparing yourself to all these other people who have all these other things, and then all of a sudden you don't see all the great stuff you have. And I'm telling you, if you're an artist, if you film it, put it on the camera and put it out, everyone, slowly but surely, and sometimes it happens quick, but they will find you. And it's original and it's only yours.
I mean, Boots is a great example of this. You've been making music since what, 94, 95?
We put out our first album in 1993.
1993, and
Yeah.
this is probably, releasing this movie is one of the biggest stages you'll probably
Oh
have
yeah,
in terms of
yeah.
promoting.
And we have, I mean, on the music side, we did the soundtrack to the movie, which is probably going to be the most heard Coup album in all this time, and so which is pretty crazy. But I think that the thing is, going to what Lakeith said, is that for us, for instance, even though maybe I tried at first, I never was able to be of the time. Like I wasn't like, oh, this is the kind of beats people are doing right now. I was like, okay, this is the thing I know how to do. Let me act like I didn't even want to do that other thing. Like, and just kind of came from myself, and I never was able to be on the trend. A couple times it happened by accident, like what I'm doing matched up with what a DJ wanted to play or whatever. But that stuff is now things that when you listen to it, you don't, unless you were there at the time, you don't know that they came from this era or that era. And it's stuff that then younger people get interested in because it's not necessarily connected. And it also made it so that because I never knew if I got it right or exactly when I did get it right, how I exactly did it, I was always doing something new, something different. And that some people that liked our album before that would be like, what the fuck are you doing? But then all of a sudden, then there'd be a whole new group of people like, oh yeah, this is something new. So like every album, there would be a bunch of people that thought that it was our first album ever, so it ended up really just having its own thing and having its own niche because I didn't, I think about when I first started, I really wanted to sound like Ice Cube. I tried so hard and I couldn't. And I would be like real mad, like when like somebody would come out and they would sound like Ice Cube. Man, they sound exactly like Ice Cube. How come I can't do it?
I like imagining you like pacing around a room, being like, "Why don't I sound like Ice Cube?"
And luckily I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how, but what I do know is that those people that I thought were the shit because they could sound exactly like Ice Cube, they weren't Ice Cube, and we don't know who they are right now.
That's right. That's
because if you're gonna go back and listen to that, you might as well go back and listen to Ice Cube.
That's right.
People know who I am, though.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hey guys, I was wondering, since you guys had people voice you guys, would you be able to voice other people? Like, who would it be?
I apologize, I didn't fully...
Who would you dub, I guess?
Who would
like,
you
know
dub?
how you have Cross and Patton Oswalt and a number of
yes,
people
sir.
dubbing your voices. Who would you want to dub?
Keith David. Does it have to be a white person? Cause
No.
Good, I love Keith
anyone.
David. His voice is the best voice I've ever heard in my life.
No, who you would...
Who would I... Oh, be the voice for? Keith David. Imagine that shit.
That's a good question.
And Oprah.
Oh, Oprah.
Oh, that'd be so fun.
Yeah.
You're gonna take Oprah's voice?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take Oprah.
No, I want to be Oprah's voice. I want to put words in her mouth.
Yeah.
I would love to hear my voice coming out of like Gwyneth Paltrow or something. You know what I mean? Power! You know what I mean? Like, it would be awesome then, boy. It'd be badass.
Wellness
Gwyneth.
speech right now.
I'd love to voice like a baby. But just be like, but
Look
the baby...
who's talking 5.
Yeah, we could make that happen. We could pitch that probably.
Yeah, but I won't speak words. I'll just like make... But the baby just sounds grown as fuck.
Goo goo gaga, daddy. Da da.
Mama. More milk, mama.
That's a movie. That's a movie right there.
Guys, I love the film. Congratulations. Sorry to bother you. Opens July. What's the specific date? In
July 6th in select cities. July 13th in every damn city.
And go see it in a theater. It's so much fun with an audience. And give them a huge round of
Shout out
applause.
to Ice Cube.
Sorry to bother you.